Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into literally one of the most massive legal shifts in modern history, the transition from the Indian Penal Code of 1860 to the brand new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023. We are going to look past the dramatic headlines and do a real deep comparative analysis of what has actually changed in India's substantive criminal law. And honestly, just as importantly, we'll look at what hasn't.
Right, so just picture this scenario for a second. What exactly happens when a 163-year-old colonial-era legal code, one that has dictated the criminal justice system of an entire subcontinent for generations, is replaced, simultaneously, across a nation of over 1 billion people? We're talking about a bedrock statute drafted by the first Law Commission of British India, suddenly giving way to a completely new legal framework. It's not just some theoretical debate. It was a massive logistical reality.
To really grasp the sheer scale of this, let's zoom in on a very specific moment in time. At exactly 12:10 a.m. on July 1, 2024, a constable on the late-night beat in Gwalior registered an FIR for a motorcycle theft. He wrote down Section 3032 of the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Literally 10 minutes earlier, that very same crime would have been registered under IPC Section 379. With that single stroke of a pen, the collision between the old code and the new one became a living, breathing paper trail in police stations nationwide. So to help us unpack this giant overhaul without getting lost in the weeds, we'll hit 4 main areas today. We'll cover the macro-structural shifts, explore what was explicitly deleted from the books, unpack the completely new crimes that got added, and finally decode the complex transition rules governing courtrooms today. All right, let's jump right into the first part and look at the macro-structural shifts between the two codes. You know, one of the first things you'll notice is the sheer volume reduction. The law got a lot leaner. We dropped from a sprawling 511 sections in the old IPC down to a much tighter 358 sections in the BNS, organized into 20 chapters instead of 23. But it's not just about shrinking the page count, it's a massive linguistic cleanup. Archaic colonial expressions and territorial references to things like British India or the Queen have been totally scrubbed out, replaced with modernized language and contemporary references to India. Here is where it gets crazy for anyone who works in law. The section numbers that lawyers, judges, and honestly a lot of citizens knew by heart, totally gone. Murder moves from the iconic Section 302 to Section 103. The infamous Section 420 for cheating, that drops to 318. Rape moves from 376 to 64, and cruelty by a husband or relatives shifts from 498A to 85 and 86. The core elements of these crimes largely remain, but their numeric addresses have completely relocated. Because of all this, if you walk into a courtroom today, you're going to see legal professionals clinging to these massive comparative cheat sheets. They have to map the old IPC sections directly to their new BNS counterparts. It's essentially a mental rewiring process, forcing everyone in the system to learn a brand new numerical language overnight. Okay, moving on to part 2. This wasn't just a simple renumbering exercise. Let's talk about what was explicitly deleted. Some things just aren't crimes anymore. Plain and simple. The drafters took the opportunity to align the code with recent Supreme Court rulings. For example, adultery, which the Supreme Court struck down in 2018, was not revived. The consensual portion of Section 377 for adults has been completely removed. We also see the deletion of Section 309, which was the attempt to commit suicide. Plus, entire sections on weights and measures were moved to other statutes, and obsolete colonial illustrations involving chariots and palanquins were finally swept away. Yeah, chariots. Now, let's look at a really major, highly debated shift. The controversial IPC Section 124A, which explicitly criminalized sedition, defined as bringing hatred or contempt against the government, has been formally removed from the books. In its place, we now have BNS Section 152. This new section focuses on penalizing acts that excite secession, armed rebellion, or endanger the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. Notably, this expands the scope to explicitly include threats made through electronic communication and financial means. It's a very significant structural shift. So, that's what was taken out. Let's flip the coin for part 3 and look at the completely new crimes added to the framework. First up, we have organized crime under Section 111. Before this, states relied heavily on special local laws to handle syndicates, but now it's baked right into the central code. This targets syndicates engaging in kidnapping, extortion, and even cybercrime. The penalties are incredibly severe, ranging from 5 years to life, and if the organized criminal activity results in a fatality, it carries the death penalty or life imprisonment, along with a mandatory minimum fine of 10 lakh rupees.
Building on that, Section 1032 is another critical addition. The BNS now explicitly recognizes mob lynching as a distinct, specific category of murder. If a group of 5 or more individuals commits murder or causes grievous hurt based on specified grounds like race, caste, sex, language, or personal belief, it triggers this exact section. The punishment is unflinching here too: life imprisonment or death.
We've also got a couple of everyday offenses that used to live in this weird legal gray area. Section 69 now explicitly penalizes sexual intercourse obtained by deceitful means, which includes making false promises of marriage, and that carries a sentence of up to 10 years. Then there is Section 304, which finally formalizes snatching as a distinct offense. Instead of blurring the lines between theft and robbery, snatching has its own clear definition and a punishment of up to 3 years.
And here is something entirely novel for Indian penal law: community service. Under Section 4F, this is now officially the 6th form of punishment. It offers magistrates an alternative to imprisonment or fines for specific minor infractions, like certain cases of defamation or petty thefts. It allows for up to 24 hours of unpaid community work, aiming at a much more reformative approach for smaller crimes.
All right, final section. With all these changes flying around, the biggest question on the ground is, which law actually applies to my case right now? Let's navigate the transition rules.
So, thanks to the Constitution, you can't be punished under a new law for an old crime, right? No ex post facto laws. This means we are currently operating in this fascinating hybrid system. If a crime happened before July 1st, 2024, but the FIR is filed after that date, the police will use the old IPC sections to charge the substantive crime, but they absolutely must use the new procedural law, the BNSS, to conduct the investigation and trial. It is a genuine dual-track reality.
Now, if all of this sounds incredibly overwhelming, here's the comforting continuity footnote. The foundational jurisprudence survives. Bedrock doctrines developed over a century survive this transition. For example, the legendary Supreme Court precedents determining the fine line between murder and culpable homicide, or the famous rarest of rare doctrine for the death penalty. All of those carry over directly and apply to the new BNS sections. The numbers changed, sure, but the legal soul of these major offenses is totally intact.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating reality to ponder. The Indian Penal Code has been officially wiped from the modern statute books. Yet, with this hybrid transition model and ongoing trials for pre-2024 offenses expected to last for years, perhaps even a decade, how many years will it actually be before the ghost of this 163-year-old colonial code truly leaves the courtroom? The law changed overnight, but the legal system will be walking in 2 worlds for a long time to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and stay curious.